We'd like to welcome today to North White High School singer-songwriter Kelly Lang joining us in our garage band class. And Kelly, first of all, thanks for joining us at North White today.
Oh, thank you, Todd. I'm so excited to be here and hopefully be able to talk to some of the guys there in the class and be of some help.
All right, Mr. Hoover, we're going to send it out to your classroom.
Thank you. The first question I always ask is, will you enlighten us with your history of music? Were you in band as a student, choir, gospel choir, anything music up to, we'll say, your teenage years?
Well, yes, indeed. I was born into a family that was not necessarily musical, but my father started out as a road manager for Conway Twitty. And if your students have not ever heard of Conway Twitty, which I assume some of them have, he had like 52 #1 hits in country music. He started out in rock and roll first and decided that he just wanted to switch gears and do country. And so when my dad began working for Conway, I was a little girl. We ended up moving from Oklahoma over to Nashville when I was around 6 or 7. And from that point, I saw a perspective of the music business from the stage point of view. I really enjoyed sitting near the stage or on the stage, and I got to hear the crowd roar and be so moved by his music and his presence. And I thought, ooh, I like that. I want that. How I was going to get it, I don't know, but I wanted it. And I decided that I was going to try to write songs. I wrote my first song when I was 6 years old. I got involved with anything I could at school. I sang for I would sing for a garage door opening. I mean, anywhere I could sing, whether it be nursing homes or a funeral or an opening for a new store. I brought my guitar. I wanted to go back to that part. I really, really, really wanted a piano, but I couldn't read music in any way. And my parents were just, they had 4 kids and it was a little hard to afford all of our things that we wanted to do. And so I begged them for a piano, but they said, you know what? Our friend is going to give you a free guitar. If you can learn the guitar, then we'll consider a piano. I learned the guitar instantly because I was motivated. I really knew that that was something that would keep me excited. So I learned the guitar and I was taught just chords. I wasn't taught how to read music. So even to this day, I don't want to encourage you guys to do this, but I only learned how to play by ear. And I realized that later on, my grandmother used to play by ear as well. I know you're getting on your teacher's case. I don't need to learn music, but you do. I regret that now. So I learned how to play guitar and then went into playing piano. And to this day, I play guitar and piano to write music with. And then I got into singing in the choir. And you guys are going to think this is kind of crazy. Because I can't read music, which I encourage you to learn to read music, I would go into the choir practices and I wouldn't learn or even know where we were in the parts of what I was supposed to sing. I had no idea how to read the notes to what line I was supposed to sing. I was just singing at the top of my lungs. And I got kicked out of church choir for that. I was singing too loud and I was singing the wrong notes. So I realized early on that I was supposed to be a soloist, not supposed to be part of a crowd. And part of this learning experience is finding out where you fit in musically. So that's that part about it. But I loved music. I was not in band at school. Again, I wouldn't have fit in well in band, being that I was very adamant about not reading music. And as an adult, it's been a real regret for mine. But at the same time, I've also, I'm friends with a lot of very, very important songwriters. Let's use Barry Gibb as an example of the Bee Gees. He's one of the greatest. He's the highest earning songwriter of all time, except for Paul McCartney in the BMI writing world. I learned that he can't read music either, so I didn't feel so bad about myself.
We'll go back out to the band room and here's student Kevin Dollenberg.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi. So my question was, can you talk about the importance of stage presence?
Oh my goodness. You know what? Stage presence is something that I think you were either born with or you don't. You either have a charisma about you. I don't think it can be taught, in other words. But out of the same mouth, I do realize that there are skills to learn. I don't mean to not name drop or anything, but we've recently lost a very important music icon, Olivia Newton-John. And I was able to become friends with her, and I realized how much I didn't know about stage presence until having been taught some things by her. My husband and I are singers, and we sing together sometimes, but we found ourselves on stage. Our presence individually was very confident, but when we would sing together, it was weird. We weren't used to doing duets. And I was telling her that, and she gave me some really important instructions about stage presence and how to move specifically across the stage and work with each other, and knowing how to not stand in front of somebody when they're singing or walk in front of someone when they're singing. So I think although you're born with a stage presence or not, you can always hone in your talent and skills to improve your look on stage. And I believe also, I think an individual look, like a certain vibe to your clothes, a certain way you style your hair or jewelry or whatever, I think is very important to stand out. I think anything that you can do to stand out and be unique and individual is of utmost importance.
Thank you, Kevin, for that question. And Kelly, I have a question for you, a little bit about songwriting. When you put together a song for you, lyrics come first, or does music come first, or how does that work? Tell us how you go about writing a song.
I think you and I've talked about this before, haven't we, Todd? For me, okay, there's different ways of writing a song. You can go and like in Nashville, we have like meetings where you go and meet your friend that's a songwriter at 3:00. You go in there with an idea, you sit down with a guitar, piano, whatever, and the idea generally turns to a couple of more words that go together, and you can write a song like that. But to me, I don't enjoy that process as much as I do when a song is inspired to me. Sometimes in the middle of the night, I will hear a melody, and if I don't wake up right then and put it into a voicemail, thank goodness for our voicemails on our, what is that, the audio app on our phone. If I didn't have that, I would miss out on a lot of opportunities to remember a melody. Sometimes a lyric will come to me, and it will just come as a repetitiveness in my head. I'll hear it over and over again, or something somebody said that was really a cool idea. So it's really, there's not a real right or wrong way of doing it, and it comes different for me at all times. But the songs that I enjoy writing the most have been inspired, and I've woken up and most of it's already written. It's a very strange thing. But my advice is, if you are home and you're in bed and you're quiet, when you get really, really quiet, when you're really relaxed, if you hear anything that's going around in your head, don't ignore it. I believe that it is just the creative process that's moving through you. And I once ignored it, and I really regret that now. Now I know to listen to it and stop. I pause and I write it down, or I record it. And it may not turn into a song at that moment, but it's something that I'll refer back to later. And it always ends up being something of value.
Well, that's a great answer, because I know today Mr. Hoover actually has some students who are trying to write songs. So thanks for that, Mr. Hoover.
Thank you again. Some of these questions are on behalf of my students. They're a little bit shy. So have you ever had to part ways with a bandmate? And what I mean by this is, how important is it to surround yourself with good or great musicians, and then sometimes again part ways and be like, you're just not up to my par?
I love that question. Wait, who asked that question? I want to know. Who's the shy one?
No, they might not be in this class. I have
Okay.
classes.
All right. So one of my favorite stories I've ever heard in my life, this does not pertain to me, but I will circle back around. My husband, his name is T.G. Shepherd. He's had 21 #1 hits in country music. So he's had a lot of experience on this situation. He told me one time his band was just taking just being very complacent. They weren't practicing. They were just being rude to each other and disgruntled on the road. They didn't like their job. And so one night after a concert, he called his band into the bus and he said, guys, there's been a change around here. And they all said, what are you talking about? And he says, y'all are going to have to get yourself a new lead singer. I quit. Which is hilarious, a way to get rid of your band. And still, it was so funny because as if they're going to replace the lead singer in that situation. I thought that was clever. I've had an opposite situation with me where I am not the best guitar player. I know it. I know chords and that's it. And some of the chords are even wrong. I'm well aware of that. But I didn't need my band player to tell me that publicly and tell the sound person to please unplug my guitar because I was distracting them. Needless to say, he is no longer my guitar player. So there's always a way of handling that. I would have been happy to have never plugged my guitar up at all, but it was just the way he said that I thought was really rude and it hurt my feelings. I needed it though. It was a very humbling experience and I learned how to play much better after that. So there's always a silver lining.
Well, thank you for your answer on that. My next question for you here, Kelly, talk a little bit of what it's like to take the stage of the Grand Ole Opry. I know that's kind of the highlight for a lot of people to get there to Nashville. You've been there several times. Talk about that, performing on that venue.
Well, the Opry is a pinnacle for any artist, specifically country artist. I've been super privileged to play that on a few occasions. Standing in that circle, there's a wooden circle that's in the middle of the Grand Ole Opry stage, and that wood is taken out of the original Ryman Auditorium, which is like the mother church of country music. So having been played on both of those stages, it's a real spiritual experience. You step into that circle and all of the greats have played before you. My experience, I sang there with Barry Gibb. We sang Islands in the Stream that night on the Opry, and I had played there a few times before, and I was so taken back by how nervous he was to step into that circle and sing, and it crosses really all genres. It's an amazing stage, an amazing vibe that's in that room, and hey, it looks good on the resume too.
Mr. Hoover, do you have somebody out there that's ready to ask, or you have another question?
Yes, we have Wyatt, and Wyatt is bold enough to ask a question.
Hi, Wyatt.
Hi. We were wondering, or at least I was wondering, for people that's never listened to your music before, how you would describe your music to them and how you take the stage or how you perform.
It's awesome. I'm just kidding. I guess I would have to say I have a very soulful, very low, rich tone to my my vocals. It's very different than most female singers that are on the radio right now. So it lends to singing some soul type of music. I used to think I was only country, but the older I've gotten, the more I realize that I sing more pop and more soul kind of music. I've changed my vibe about that. When you come to one of my concerts, you're going to hear songs from different eras of time. I love to go back in time because I think music was so fantastic in the 70s and 80s. And I like to recreate songs that I loved that you'll still hear even in the grocery store or getting your car washed or whatever. But you'll get an experience of all different genres of music when you come to hear me perform and play. And I just have a lot of fun. I love to interact with the audience. I love to get them involved with what we're doing, and somehow, hopefully, they'll maybe learn something new from maybe a song that they had not even known about. For instance, I've just recently gone back, and I'm not sure at your age group if you've ever heard of Gladys Knight or Gladys Knight and the Pips. If you are not familiar with her music, please do yourself a favor, go back and study her. I re-recorded a song called Midnight Train to Georgia. And there's a lot of really cool history behind that song. I recorded it not just because I love the song, but I want generations like yourself to go back and really dig into the history of some of the music you might not even know has been affected by people like Gladys Knight. She's amazing, and you need to learn more about her.
Thank you, Wyatt. Or Mr. Hoover, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. One of my questions was, when you were singing Midnight Train to Georgia, how much of the original did you keep, and how hard was it to stray from the song that everybody knows to make it your own?
Well, I wished I sounded like her. So it doesn't sound anything like her. She's my all-time favorite singer ever. I think she can sing the phone book and it'd be incredible. I've never met her. I've seen her several times in concert, but I'm just totally inspired by her whole story, the way that she grew up in the Motown sound. And there's just a lot of different aspects of her career that I follow. The difference that I do with my track is of course, it's recorded in a newer version. Of course, the sound and all of the technique that we have now with, the recording opportunities are much different and bolder and more, I don't know, current, I guess is the word to use. But I did try to keep the sound of the Pips. She had singers that followed her, and they would do fun musical dances and stuff behind her. And I did keep that with a background singer named Chip Davis. He now sings for Alabama. Wonderful writer, wonderful singer. But he gave me the essence of her. I tried to keep it in the same feel of her recording, but bringing it up to current date.
Well, let's talk about another song that maybe students are familiar with here. I'm Not Going Anywhere has become part of the Ascension Healthcare Networks. I know it played a lot here in the Indianapolis area with the Ascension hospitals here. And I think we talked earlier when we did the radio interview on WMRS, that song's been around for a while.
It has. And that's what I want to encourage you guys to. If you write a song today and you don't really get anywhere with the song that you've written today, or even tomorrow, or even next year, don't panic. I wrote this song 17 years ago. And yes, I recorded it and I thought it was a really pretty song, but it just, it did some people heard it, they liked it, no big deal. Imagine my surprise, all these years later, I get a phone call from Ascension Hospitals wanting to use my song in a national commercial. Guys, it was unbelievable. The amount of people that have heard that song, that have been inspired by that song, the letters that I get from all over the world of how that song is inspired or helped encourage people, or not to mention the paycheck. That was nice. That was really nice. So my point in telling you guys this, open your heart and your mind up to creating and the process of writing. Don't be discouraged. Don't be shy about it. Even if you think this is a silly idea, or I feel stupid sharing this idea, go with it, because you would not be given this idea in vain. Nothing is created in vain.
Thank you for that answer. Mr. Hoover.
Thank you. On your website, you're praised as a singer, author, speaker, painter, and comedian, and as well as a musician. Can you talk about how important it was to have that musical background in all the other jobs that you have?
I wear a lot of hats. Well, you know what I think is really interesting? You've heard the term the arts. The arts described as painting or singing or dancing, or it's all part of the creative process of the brain, in my opinion. I feel that if you generally can sing, you can generally learn to dance. You've got some rhythm to you. If you can dance and you can count numbers, then you can probably write music. It's just kind of part of that process of the brain. And I didn't know that I could paint until I was well into my 30s. And that was part of the creative process too. I did find out this though, that I'm not good at doing a lot of things all at one time. Like if I'm in the middle of painting a painting, I'm not really good at concentrating on writing per se. I have to compartmentalize the parts of my brain that do that. If I'm in the process of putting together a concert or a show, I'm not really good at painting per se. So it just kind of goes all hand in hand, but it's all a form of the arts.
Well, I want to appreciate you joining us. This is National Arts and Education Week. So this is a great interview, goes along with it. Kevin, you're joining us from the South Bend area. Is there anything you want to add in? I'll let you jump in for a question.
Oh, I'd love that. Thanks. You know, we preach to our kids about the value of writing and reading and how important that is, and kind of going cross curricular with a lot of different things. And so, you know, can you talk real quickly about your experiences then in school, either as a young student transitioning from elementary to middle into high school and then beyond, what that process looked for you and how that you know, intellectually thinking and writing and how important that was for your growth to kind of go where you are now?
Well, I have a funny story about that. I because I was starting out very young in the music industry and I was traveling a lot, I would have to do my studies, you know, around my travel schedule. And I thought that was normal, but apparently it was not normal for me to do that. But music was always such a heavy part of my personality, and it always will be. And I just really appreciated my parents and my teachers, my principal, that was around me that nurtured that. They didn't say, oh, that needs to be plan B. You need to consider that as plan B. That was always my plan A. And I loved that people encouraged me to continue with that as my plan A. And it's really funny. I ran into my principal not long ago, and he's had thousands of students since me, you know, and I just one of them. And I said, hi, Mr. Decker. I said, it's so good to see you. I'm Kelly Lang. And he goes, I know who you are. I said, oh, really? Of all the people? You know, he goes, Kelly, you were a average student, but you excelled in people skills. So, you know, not sometimes the math or the social studies or whatever, maybe that doesn't trip your trigger. Maybe that's not what is holding you, but the music is. You know, you've got to find out where those students are being nurtured and where they're growing from. It doesn't make them not intelligent if they're not great in math. I wasn't that great in math, but I surely excelled in the love and passion of music, and it's brought me a long way.
Thank you, Kevin, for that question. Mr. Hoover, I know you had a follow-up.
It's already been answered, but here's Kevin back again for another question.
In garage band class, we learned about Chuck Berry and Elvis. And then this next week, we're going to be studying Richie Valens and Buddy Holly.
Wow.
Talk about some of the importance that they had on and the impact they had on the music industry.
I don't even have to answer that question. You know how important they were. Oh my goodness. I can only speak personally about Elvis because my husband was friends with Elvis, and actually Elvis gave him his first tour bus and started him on his way. So that was a really cool thing. I know personal stories about Elvis that maybe somebody wouldn't. I'm actually friends with Priscilla. It's a very strange world we live in. The one thing I really loved about Elvis in particular is he was so kind and so generous and so loving that still to this day, we're still talking about him. And the music is just a venue to get to the bigger platform. I heard somebody say the other day, if you're a nice person, before you get money, you're going to be a nicer person. And I think that's what happened to Elvis. I think he was just a kind soul, and he used his platform to be even kinder. And that's more important to me sometimes than gold records. And I loved that about him. Now, of course, Chuck Berry, I think Elvis learned a lot from Chuck. And I think, you know, if you go down through the line, everybody is inspired by somebody. And I just think it's incredible that you guys are studying, going back in time to study what's making today's music great.
And just to let you know, they actually did a cross-curricular activity where Mr. Hoover took his class to the culinary class, and they made peanut butter, banana, and bacon sandwiches. So
I love it.
Across
Have y'all
the-
been to Graceland? Have you anybody ever been to Graceland?
I've been there twice. Love it. Love
Okay. Mr. Hoover, have you been? Okay. I think, you know, if I could encourage that, it's so mind blowing to think you would think that this would be a palace, and it's really not. It's a really kind of an average sized home, and you wouldn't think that the king lived there, but it's really inspiring when you go see all of the gold records on the wall and all that he was capable of doing in his short time.
Yeah, that's what my wife said when we walked in there and you just saw the enormity of what he was able to do. It really brings it to life. Question for you here, Kelly.
I wanted to reiterate this
Yeah.
part though. Let's think about this. He was at an era when there was no social media. He never traveled overseas ever, to perform. He was in Germany, of course, for the war. But I find it so fascinating that this man's career is still so huge and had never had that help. Can you imagine what his career would have been like today if he had had social media? I just find that fascinating.
I find that way too. We're gonna go back out to the band room and here is student Abigail Skaggs.
Hi, Abigail.
Hi, what is your favorite song that you have written of your songs?
It's a song that has not come out yet. It's a song that I wrote, and it's called "I Think It's Jesus," and it's going to be coming out in the spring, and it's all about when you see a penny on the ground and you're like, well, that's weird. Where did that come from? Or if you see a white feather flying around, or you see the same numbers over and over again. I wrote a song about that, and it's about the chill bumps you get on your arms, and you're like, wow, why am I getting chills when I hear this song? It's about that, and it's coming out. And one of my favorite things about that song is I pitched it to Dolly Parton, and although Dolly was not recording that type of music at this time, she took the time to write me a letter and told me she thought the song was great, and she looked forward to recording it when she did a gospel project. So that was exciting and really encouraging to me as a writer. We always look for, signs that we are on the right path. And that was truly a sign for me that song was something of value. So it really meant a lot to me. I can't wait to share it with you.
Abigail, thank you for that question. And Kelly, we got about 5 minutes left here. One of my questions for you is, besides, having our students listen to your work, who are some people or songs or artists today you think they should be listening to?
Well, I'm going to reiterate the Gladys Knight thing. I love that for sure. I'm a historian as far as music is concerned. Don't get me wrong. I like some things of present day. But I like to know where it came from. I like to know the origins of why music is what it is. And I guess that's an old soul in me. If you listen to my project Old Soul and Old Soul 2, which is coming out in November, you'll see where my love is, and you'll see the eclectic versions of songs that I have been attracted to, and perhaps one of your students would like that as well. But I don't know. I know that I look at music as it's really difficult for me to listen to a song as a whole. I have to break it down in my head, and probably you guys are like that too. You hear different parts of the musicianship. I love the fact that we're going back to vinyl a lot, because I love to see all of the details behind the scenes and who played on the album. And I think that's always fun to do. And it's really exciting to me to see that coming back.
Thank you. Mr. Hoover, we're going to give you the final question here.
Thank you. This is from a student, and I don't want to end on a dark note, no pun intended, but this is from Gabe. What kept you going through your darkest times musically? And then I ask also, is music the best medicine or cure-all?
Yes, indeed. I wanted to share with your students that I am a survivor of breast cancer. I'm 17 years out now, and I'm really grateful to be here to be able to talk to you guys. Music is healing. Music, I did a lot of writing and soul searching when I was going through the darkest of times, and it was incredible. But I also think humor is healing. I think anything comedic and silly and funny was very helpful to me. And that's why I came up with a silly character named XOXO. You'll find her on my website. She just gave me the ability to write stupid songs and think outside the box and be creative and silly and not take myself too seriously. And music is a way of doing that. It can completely change your mood. It can completely change. If you're in a bad mood, you put on a happy song and it can change your whole vibe through the whole day. And I encourage people to do that.
Kelly, thank you so much for joining us here at North White today. And joining our program of our groups of speakers and what it means to our students. Mr. Hoover, you want to say anything here in the end too?
Once more, thank you very much. Also, I think it's important, if you know anybody else that would enjoy this opportunity, pass along Todd's, Mr. Shriver's email address, because the students enjoy this every day. Thank you.
Well, it's my pleasure. I wish I had had this program when I was growing up. I applaud you guys. Thank you for having us.
Kelly, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thanks for being with us today at North White.
Thank you, Todd, and nice to meet you all.